you have a right triangle. You're missing one side of it. Do you remember how you find that missing side of the triangle? When you know two sides of a right triangle. We did it in 8-1. It was the very first thing we did in this chapter.
Why isn't it? Is it 5? Why is it 5?
It's not 5. This isn't, okay, we don't know angles, right? This isn't a 30, 60, 90. It's not a 45, 45, 90. We don't know anything about the angles.
We
Add what?
We add both of the legs.
Do you remember what the Pythagorean theorem looks like?
Y equals mx.
No. That's slope-intercept one. That's the one. Okay, so on all of these.
A squared plus b squared equals c squared.
Right. Okay, so that's Pythagorean theorem. Which one is A, which one is B, which one is C?
5 is A.
5 is A.
Sure, this can be our A. This can be our B.
Y is C.
Okay, the only one that truly matters is C, right? C has to be C. The other ones are interchangeable. Okay? So if this is our setup, then we're going to say what? Plug it into the theorem.
25 plus 100.
Max, write it down. 5 squared plus 10 squared equals C squared. Sorry, we should make that Y. We're solving for Y.
Plus 100 equals 125.
Yeah, and honestly, you guys, you may plug that into your calculator, right? 5 squared plus 10 squared is 125 equals Y squared. What's your next step?
Square root.
You square root that. Okay, now here's where it got tricky. Do you remember how we did this? We branched it off into two different things.
Did I do it wrong?
Do you remember the list?
What?
Here's the perfect squares, right? No decimals. We're not doing decimals. Are you getting decimals?
I didn't. I just got straight 11, but I put the same thing in this.
The square root of 125?
Yeah.
121 is 11.
No, 125.
Oh, you're probably on fix. Hold on. So that's the value, but we want simplest radical form. Do you remember doing this, where we branched it off into two different things? What perfect square is 125 divisible by? Focus, gentlemen. What perfect square? So of all these numbers, 25 would be the number that 125 is divisible by. So you type in 125 divided by 25. The perfect square goes on the left. The one that's not a perfect square goes on the right. 25 times what is 125? 5, okay? So right now we know this is what y equals, but we can simplify it. What is the square root of 25?
5.
It's 5. So y equals 5 in place of this guy. The square root of 5 we can't do anything with. So 5 rad 5 is your answer. That make sense?
Do we have to do the simple thing?
You do. Now, if you told me 11 point whatever, I would give you partial credit because you almost got there. But I want simplest radical form because that's your best answer, okay? A rounded answer is not your best answer. Okay, look at number 2. What's your A? What's your B? What's your C? What's your C? 14 is C. Okay? So the one that's across from the right angle has to be by itself. The other two, it doesn't matter, right? You can call this A and this B, or you can swap them. That doesn't matter. Just make sure that your C is the right C. Okay? How do you set that up in Pythagorean theorem?
9 squared plus x.
X squared
14 squared.
equals 14 squared. What's your first step?
Subtract.
Yeah, what are we going to subtract?
Subtract 9 squared.
Yes, so take away 9 squared. So plug that into your calculator. 14 squared minus 9 squared.
X squared equals 25.
No, I got
Or,
115 is what I got to. Did you miss the squared maybe?
oh, no, I didn't use my calculator.
Oh, gotcha. So x squared equals 115. And then you check, is there a perfect square that 115 is divisible by? Do you remember how to do this?
How does that even make sense? If you have 14 minus 9, that's 5.
But it's not 14 minus, that's, remember, it's 14
No, I
squared
didn't use my calculator. I just like.
minus 9 squared. That's why I'm saying plug it into your calculator, because your calculator is gonna figure it out for you. Okay, so 115, you're gonna go 115 divided by 100, that doesn't work. 115 divided by 81, that doesn't work. By 64, by 49. Plug them all in to see if any of them will work. I don't think any of them do. No. So if nothing simplifies, what's your answer?
115.
It's the square root of 115, right? X equals the square root of 115.
We're gonna be able to use this on the quiz.
Use the worksheet?
Yeah.
No,
Oh.
no.
This
Okay.
is the unit I needed most for.
This is not drawn to scale. Let's do number 4.
Wait, what?
What?
Max is confused on how we got to number 4.
Where we get? Wait, what?
So did you plug this into your calculator?
No, I don't have calculator.
So well, that's the problem. You're supposed to be plugging it in. 14 squared minus 9 squared is 115.
Yeah.
So you get x squared equals 115.
Well, you
And then
already
you
got
square root that. What?
You already got x to whatever to.
X squared. Right, but we want x. So we have x squared equals 115. The way that we solve for x is we square root this, square root that. So x equals the square root, because x squared square rooted is just x, right? So the square root of 115.
Jimmy Gallagher.
Okay.
Maybe Gallagher.
JG.
Okay, look at number 4.
I'm stabbing.
Hey,
Please don't ever say it again, please.
we're up here. What is C in this triangle?
13.
C is 13. A and B are interchangeable. Doesn't matter which one's which, okay? So when you set this up in Pythagorean theorem, 12 squared plus what?
X squared.
Plus x squared equals
13 squared.
13 squared. Okay? So your first step is to do what?
Subtract.
Subtract 12 squared, right? So you're going to plug into your calculator. This is not 1 squared. Plug in 13 squared minus 12 squared, and what do you get?
25.
Mhm.
Oh, 25.
Did you get 25? You should get 25. Okay, so you get x squared equals 25. What's your next step?
That little.
You square root it, right? So if we're going to square root and square root, you get x on the left, because the square root of x squared is just x. What do you get on the right?
5.
It's 5, okay? If it works out to a perfect square, then take the square root. It's 5. That's a Pythagorean triple. 5, 12, 13.
Tell him to come back today.
I don't think it's that square.
Who?
I just see this. Logan Johnson.
Okay, number 5.
Better be wait for him.
What is your C on number 5?
Y.
The y, okay? This is C. That means this is your A and your B. So we're going to say 8 squared plus 8 squared equals y squared. What do you do
Don't
next?
you just add those together?
Add them together. 8 squared plus 8 squared is? What do you get?
128.
128. Okay. So here's where we're at. Here's your list.
Oh. Wait. You don't just square root.
You can try. Is that a perfect square?
Let's find out.
25 or 6.
No, that's 11.
It's not, right?
I wanted to try it.
Okay.
It's not.
So now you're trying to figure out 128 is divisible by which of these?
64.
Which one? Okay, so 16 works, but there's a higher one.
64.
64 works. So you always want to start high. 128 divided by 100, 128 divided by 81, 128 divided by 64, 49. Work your way down. 64 works. and it's 64 times 2, that gets you 128. What does that equal? What's rad 64 times rad 2? What's the square root of 64? 8 times the square root of 2. Now look at this, you guys. 8 rad 2. Do you recognize that? That's a 45, 45, 90 triangle, right?
Wait, so if we find a 45,
Yeah, if you have-
90 triangle, we could just like do the.
If you have two legs that are equal, then it has to be isosceles. It has to be a 45, 45, 90. So this has to be 8 rad 2. So you could do that even though they didn't tell you it was 45. Okay, we might come back to that, but we're gonna leave it at that for now. Okay, these are the first 2 questions on your quiz. It says classify these as acute, obtuse, or right. How do you do that?
I have to qualify this.
It's the Pythagorean theorem. Guys, listen to me. The entire first page of your quiz is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The entire first page. You're just doing the Pythagorean theorem. So in this case, you're saying 3 squared plus 8 squared somehow relates to 10 squared. So plug this into your calculator. 3 squared plus 8 squared.
It's 8.
What do you get?
2. Up 2.
It is obtuse. What do you get for this?
73.
73. 10 squared is 100. If the c squared is bigger, that's obtuse. Remember I showed you with my arms, if this is a right triangle, if I make that third side from my elbow to my finger bigger, that made this angle obtuse, right? So if c gets bigger, if c squared is bigger, it's an obtuse triangle. If c squared gets smaller, that's an acute triangle, okay? Let's do 10. 10 is 10 squared plus 24 squared somehow relates to 26 squared. Plug that into your calculator. Max, go get a calculator so you can plug these in.
676.
Is your left side?
Yeah, and then the right side is 676.
676. Yeah, so if they are equal, right? If your two sides are equal, that's a right triangle. If a squared plus b squared equals c squared, it'll be right. All right, do number 8. Set that up, plug it in. Tell me what you think.
It's
What do you get?
41, 45, and 47.
Isn't it
49.
49?
41.
So 4 squared plus 5 squared is 41. This one's 49, so this is obtuse. Okay? All right, do number 11. 20 squared plus 21 squared somehow relates
840.
to 28 squared. So 841 on the left,
And
It's
784.
784. So c squared is smaller. When c squared is smaller, that's acute.
Can
Okay?
we save the sheet
Can you?
for the test? Like, can we?
You should save it. You're not going to use it on the quiz, though.
Please.
I might let you use something on the test.
I'm
We'll
not
see
gonna
how the
remember.
test goes. But for the quiz, no.
These I think I can remember, but I can't remember the 1 through 6s. Like I can't remember the formulas very well.
It's all the same formula. A squared plus b squared equals c squared.
Yeah, I'm gonna forget that.
Oh, you mean these 1 through 6s?
What?
Are you talking about the first page?
Oh,
I want to remember these
first.
numbers.
Yeah.
easy.
All this entire page is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. You're just using the Pythagorean theorem. Okay?
I want to remember these numbers either. Like,
Yeah, but you can calculate those, right? It's 2 squared is 4. So plug in 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, 5 squared. They're the perfect squares. So it's a number times itself. 2 times 2, 3 times 3, 4 times 4, 5 times 5. So you can plug that stuff into your calculator to find the perfect squares.
Okay, I've been driving for 6 months.
Okay. Hopefully these will be helpful on your quiz because you'll use these
Wait, do you just put the L?
to solve the problems. Yes, but here's the issue, you guys. If you set these up wrong and then you try to use these to solve the problems, that's a problem, right? Because you're going to do all the problems wrong. So these are the most important thing for you to do correctly on this quiz. If this is L and this is L, then we need to fill in the blanks for what they are. And I will probably on your quiz come around and check your setup. I'll have you check it with me first, and if it's wrong, I'll just correct it for you right there so that you don't then do all the problems wrong. Remind me to do that though. Okay, so on the left, this is the 45, 45, 90. What is this red side
L rad 3.
in the 45, 45, 90?
Oh,
It's L. The two legs are the same, right? If the angles are congruent, the sides across from them are congruent. So that's L and L. Do you remember what the hypotenuse is on this one? L rad 2.
it's just too much sugar.
Okay.
Helen, last name I forgot. Elizabeth Helen,
I don't see anyone. I see a tree.
no, the girl right there.
Hey,
I don't have the angle.
do math.
Yeah, Liz.
With me.
Elizabeth Helen, and then I forgot her last name.
Is it Liz Michaels?
I don't know, her real name is
Liz
Elizabeth.
Michaels, yeah.
Middle, okay, there you go, Elizabeth Helen Michaels.
All right, on the 30, 60, 90,
You know, I don't.
the one across from the 30 is your L. What's the one across from the 60?
Oh, my God.
That's L rad 3. Okay, what's the one across from the right angle? What's your hypotenuse?
L2.
2L, yes. L2 is fine, but I like the 2 first. Okay, so this is of the utmost importance, right? Because if we get this wrong, we get everything else wrong. So make sure that you memorize this setup before Thursday morning, okay? Okay, so let's take a look. First of all, number 1, which of the 2 setups are we using? The 45, 45, 90 or the 30, 60, 90?
45, 45.
The 45, 45, 90, right? They give you the angle measures. That means these are the same length. Those are L and L. This is your L rad 2 side. Do you remember the shortcut on this one? True it. Do you remember the shortcut for the 45, 45, 90?
Nope.
You do divide. It's just like the 30, 60,
Oh.
90, but with a different side and with a
Wait.
different number.
Y is 9? Is Y 9?
It's not 9, but 9
Oh,
is
9
part of
rad
it.
2.
It's 9 rad 2. So you take your number, you divide by 2, and you multiply by rad 2, which is just like the 30, 60, 90, right? We divided by 3, and we multiplied by rad 3. It's the same process. It's just a different number that you're setting it up with, okay? So this is 18 divided by 2, which is 9, times the square root of 2. So this is 9 times the square root of 2. Okay, this one, you have L rad 2, right? If we set this up as a 45, 45, 90, it's L, L, L rad 2. What is L?
5.5.
It's not 5.5. Look at this setup. I'm saying L rad 2 is the same as 11 rad 2. What has to go here to equal this?
11.
11,
So
right? So this is 11, 11, and 11 rad 2.
wait, but
It's the matrix.
Because this is the length of a leg times rad 2. So when they give you the hypotenuse with a rad 2 in it, you already have your L out in front, right? It's when they give you the hypotenuse as a whole number that you don't have the L yet, so that's where you have to put the L in. Look at number 5. We're going to keep going. Look at number 5.
Oh, so this one they gave us the whole number.
This one, they gave you the leg, though.
Oh, the leg. Okay,
What is
so
this
then
side?
That'd be 14.
14.
And then the other side would be
14 rad.
14 rad 2.
14 times the square root of 2. Okay, I'm going to keep going with the 45, 45, 90. I'm going to give you 3 problems.
Oh, this is not a yippee.
You don't need to write it down. Just tell me what they would be. Okay, let's say this is 8 versus this is 8 versus this is 6. Okay, in a 45, 45, 90, when I give you the leg, what's the other leg?
8.
It's the same, right? 8 and 8. What's the hypotenuse?
8 rad 2.
8 times the square root of 2, okay? But if I give you the hypotenuse, it's a different process. What is this leg?
4 rad 2.
4 rad 2. Take that number, divide by 2, and multiply by rad 2. 4 rad 2 and 4 rad 2. Okay? Good morning, Miles. Thank you.
Good morning, Miles. Miles, what's the hypotenuse?
Oh, this is right now. Max, you gotta bring your stuff to the office.
Ryan, when he said.
You're not in trouble.
Send me a haunted hike.
Like all your stuff. Take your bag and everything and bring that up to the office. Okay. So what do you do with this? They gave you a hypotenuse.
3 rad 2.
Good. Cut it in half. Multiply by rad 2. Okay?
Wait, so basically, if the hypotenuse has the rad 2, then both of the legs would be the same.
The same
because it
number.
has the rad 2 behind
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
But if they just give us the whole number, then we have to cut it in half and.
And then multiply by the rad 2. Okay, so that's 45, 45, 90. Look at 30, 60, 90. Remember the setup, right? It's L is across from 30. L rad 3 is across from 60. 2L is across from the hypotenuse, right? Truett,
Yeah.
hang out with me.
Oh, okay.
So on this one, they gave you the hypotenuse, which means they gave you 2L.
X is 18.
18. You got to cut it in half, right? We're saying 2L is the 36, so divide by 2.
18
That means this is 18.
18 rad 3.
18 rad 3 would be the other side, right? So this is L rad 3, and 2L. Okay, so if they give you the hypotenuse, cut it in half, and then multiply by rad 3. Okay, so they gave you the hypotenuse again. What is the shorter leg, the red?
7.
Cut it in half, that's 7. What is the y?
7 rad 3.
7 times the square root of 3. Is that clicking? Okay, look at this one. This is L. This is L rad 3. This is 2L.
The shorter leg is 4. And then the hypotenuse is 8.
Right. If L rad 3 is 4 rad 3, then L is 4, right? So this is 4. And this is double that. So 8. Does that make sense? Okay, last one. Let's say the longer leg, so this is your L rad 3 side, is 6. What do you do to find the shorter leg? This is the fancy one, the shortcut. Divide by 3 and
So is the shorter leg 2?
what?
Is the
It's not
shorter
2.
leg
You have to multiply by what? Rad
Oh, rad.
3, right? If you're dividing by 3, you're multiplying by rad 3. So this is 2 rad 3, which means the hypotenuse is what?
4.
4 rad 3, right? We double this.